Hi everybody, it's JJ with Productivity Injection, and I'm coming at you with the exciting news that June 16th is Bloomsday. And I wanted to know how Bloomsday has affected you. And right now, probably you're looking at me thinking, okay, what is Bloomsday and why should I know what it is? Well, Bloomsday is June 16th. And it's from Ulysses by James Joyce, and it's basically this guy, Leopold Bloom's amblings around Dublin during June 16th. And this is a fairly well-known work of literature that a lot of people never read because it is famously difficult. There is a lot going on. And I actually read this. I took a class, and I want to say it was at the Smithsonian. And it was given by a retired literature professor who also happened to be Irish. And so he told us like what all the sections were about, because Joyce was very deliberate in his words, and each section had its own, it was about something, and a lot of it tied into the Odyssey by Homer, Ulysses. And so it's really, and it's not something like, I don't think that if you listen to this on audiobooks that you'd really get a lot out of it, because this one's really about the language. So June 16th is Bloomsday. And I really feel that a lot of business owners, because I know that there are a lot of people that I talk to who say to me, JJ, I do not have time to read. And yes, you do. I think a lot of the problem is because you think that this is what you have to read. And that's why you're not reading. Because I did say to somebody, and when she said I don't have time to read, and I just looked at her and said, well, how much time do you spend watching Netflix? And she said, well, but I want to relax when I get home. And I get that. But reading does not, as I have said in other areas, reading does not have to be, you don't have to be reading difficult stuff. You don't even have to read nonfiction. I feel like a lot of business owners just think that they shouldn't be wasting their time reading something that isn't about business, and that's wrong. Because some of the books about business are kind of a waste of time anyway. But also, books, you don't have to always be educating yourself, although you can if you want. But sometimes you can just read just to give your brain a rest, just to have a reset or a recharge. And it's almost like Netflix, except it's actually better for your brain because you're participating in it. And if you still don't want to read fiction, I will tell you that fiction is shown to increase empathy. And that's something that a lot of leaders, they're talking about a lot of leaders, and leadership really needs to have empathy right now. And it doesn't mean that you are necessarily going to, give in to everybody's hard luck story, but you are going to empathize with them and show that you hear them. And fiction actually helps you do that, and nonfiction does not. Anyway, I'm a big reader, as you know, if you've read my posts. And so I actually thought that I would talk about some of the books that I really like, both for business and for not business. And so I will start with the books that I like for business. So this one, and you can see this is like my my note-taking thing. So when I'm reading and I find something and I want to remember it, or I want to, take a note of it, I put it on a Post-it and slap it on the page. And that way, if I'm looking for a quote or something, I can find it pretty quickly. So this one is Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, who is a professional poker player. And so she talks about making decisions when you don't have all the information and you're not ever going to have it. Thinking in Bets. So that's a really good one, I think, for business owners. This one, The Elephant in the Brain. And this is about how important social ties are, and again, even for introverts, because we have a very finely tuned system for kind of assessing like the hierarchy of people. And this was necessary, like we banded together, that's how we survived as a species. So that's something that's very finely hardwired into our brains. You're not going to get rid of it, basically. So that kind of talks about that. Barking Up the Wrong Tree. This is just by Eric Barker. This is just like general neuroscience, so if you're interested in the brain, this is a good one. And then the next two are actually about writing. So I do enjoy writing. I'm also a ghostwriter. And so there are two books, actually, let me bring them both up, that are really good about writing and creating content. So if you are, trying to write for like social media posts or whatever, or creating your lead magnets, Bird by Bird, and I really don't like a lot of what Anne Lamott writes, but this is a really good book about writing. And then this is Stephen King's On Writing. This is like the best writing book. Like every, English department and writing college course should make people read this book. It's that good. And I actually like Stephen King's writing too. So these are two like really good books about writing, if you need them. This one is kind of interesting. This is about flow. It's a specific brain state. It's about how you can get into flow, how sometimes there's group flow. And this can actually be really helpful for business owners because sometimes, and you might have heard of it, is getting into the zone. And I've felt it sometimes when I'm writing and I just get into flow and you just lose track of time for actually really good brain reasons. Things actually happen in your brain when you're in flow that sort of make you unable to recognize that time is passing, and some other things. And it's a little bit subversive too, so just FYI. And then this one, Cal Newport. So I do talk about deep work, which is this idea that you only have a certain amount of time during the day to be doing your deep work. But this one's good too. It's about digital minimalism, and which is really about reducing distractions while you're working. And then I thought I had a copy of Thinking Fast and Slow, which I'm sure I do, but I couldn't find it in my bookshelves. Really good one about the two different systems of the brain. So these are kind of, and you'll notice that none of these are like really specific. Well, a couple of them are a little bit more specific to productivity, but they're just kind of general books about, kind of thinking, how to think, what affects our thinking, which is really what business owners need to understand, right? Because we're always thinking, even if you're running a store or something that is not, technically it's not cognitively demanding work, maybe selling retail, you are doing cognitively demanding work when you're a business owner, even when you're doing retail. So it's good to know these things. And I got through those pretty quickly because I really wanted to but kind of show you some of the books that I have really enjoyed, fiction-wise, and I'm not necessarily recommending them for everybody, but I'm just saying, these are ways that you can actually kind of relax and be reading, and you can still tell people that you're reading because you are reading, but these are not necessarily educational books. So I have John le Carré's Agent Running in the Field. I actually think Silver Review, which was kind of his last one, might have even been a better book. But anyway, spy books, spy thrillers, fun. They're fun. This one is this may be one of my favorite books of all time. So when I was a kid, my favorite book was Jane Eyre because, and I read it as a tween, and it's so good for tween girls because it's got it's got the mad woman in the attic. It's got this kind of poor, plain woman who, knows what she wants and refuses to give up her values, all that kind of stuff. So a huge fan of Jane Eyre. This is another book that I think, I'm not sure if it's more favorite than Jane Eyre, but this is really good. Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. And it's by a Polish woman, Olga Tokarczuk. I don't know how you pronounce that. Anyway, obviously this is in translation. I don't speak Polish, and it won the Nobel, and it is so good. And I mean, I actually, when I got to the end of the book, I was giggling with delight over how it ended up. And it's kind of a little bit of a mystery. The protagonist here is an elderly woman, and it's fabulous. Some people are really going to hate this book, but it is really good. So that's that one. Then there's also Bitter Orange, and this is just a random, it's almost like a gothic kind of haunted house kind of thing, almost. Atmospheric, and yeah, so that's good too. And then Castle Shade. So Laurie King, and I actually I've read some of the Sherlock Holmes stuff. I never really liked the Sherlock Holmes stuff. Laurie King, it's almost like a fandom where she has a woman who eventually ends up marrying Sherlock Holmes. And she's like half Jewish and she's American, and so they go around solving mysteries. And this is not the first book, so you might want to start with the first book in this series, which I think is The Beekeeper's Apprentice. But they're all like really good, and this is a really good example of the series. And Mary Russell, that's the character's name, Mary Russell. So that's really good too. Yeah, this one, Darling Rose Gold. So this one is really, it's kind of nasty. And I love the trope of unlikable and unreliable narrators. And this one has them, and I'm just gonna say it's about a mom who has Munchausen by proxy. It's more about her daughter, but so the mom's in there. But so this is not intended to be representative of most moms. And I think the people who really hate this book tend to be people who had really strong family systems. And the rest of us think it's awesome. And then another one that's really good in the trope of unreliable and unlikable narrators is Fleischmann is in Trouble. And you can see it's got like some kind of sticker on it because most of the books I do try to get from like thrift books or something and not necessarily pay full price unless I have a gift certificate to the store. I do a lot of reading through the library, so it can be completely free, but yeah, I do use thrift books and some other ways to buy books, especially if I read a book in the library that I like, that I have to buy it. So I try to do that through thrift books. So yeah, so the point here is like not all the books are Ulysses. Like you don't necessarily have to have somebody who's an expert in English literature. That doesn't have to be the kind of book that you read. You could read a spy book. You could read a mystery or a thriller. Those are kind of my favorite books. You can read a romance if that's your thing. Just reading is it's good for you. And if you have kids, reading to your kids is also good. Although some of these books might not really make for good kid reading, but you can find some kids' books. But I do find like some like with the more difficult stuff, so like Ulysses or Shakespeare, it's a really good idea to actually get some other people in on the fun. So like I said, I took that class on Ulysses, and when I was in San Diego, I took a free class on Shakespeare that was given by the library. And so basically we all took turns reading out the different parts, and then we had like a little discussion. Again, it was led by an English professor who specialized in Shakespeare. And so I really, I found I really got a lot out of it between the reading and the, understanding what was going on. And then we went to go see the performance that was at the Old Globe based on the play that we were reading. But it doesn't have to be difficult. You don't have to be like trying to get through Ulysses. You could just be reading a John le Carré spy novel, and that's perfectly good too. So anyway, enjoy your Bloomsday. I will also note that Ulysses has one of the better descriptions of the female orgasm, even better than When Harry Met Sally. So if that doesn't induce you to read it, I don't know what will. So have a great one, everybody, and do some reading. Take some time out from your work and do some reading. The books will be here for you. Take care, everybody.